I guess it's been too long, everybody. Good afternoon, just afternoon. I'm Amherst Williams. I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut League of History Organizations. I want to welcome you to another CLHO Colleagues Circle. Today, we're talking again about Connecticut History Day and how you and your organization can really get the most out of this annual event. Back in August, could it possibly be that long ago? We had a great conversation. Hopefully some of you were also at that event where we talked about the theme for the year, and I'm sure our guest today will be talking a little bit more about that, generating some Connecticut topics and thinking about ways sort of in advance of the school year that organizations could think about getting involved in Connecticut History Day and trying to make it sort of attract History Day students to come and do research at their sites and with their materials. And today we're moving on from that and talking a little bit more about some of the ways that you can continue to engage with the History Day program, with students and educators involved in Connecticut History Day in ways that benefit you and your organization and bring more people to your site and draw interest in your collections once again. So we have with us today Rebecca Tabor, who's the director of Connecticut History Day, or the head of Connecticut History Day at the Connecticut Democracy Center in Connecticut's Old State House, which you see in her lovely background there. We also have with us Jen Hunt, who is a retired teacher from the West Hartford School Districts. She was a longtime Connecticut ambassador for History Day and also is currently the coordinator for the Torrington Regional Contest. And also Dayne Rugh, who's the director at the Slater Memorial Museum in Norwich, and who I just learned this morning. Everyone crack open your Connecticut magazines to page 50. Here he is with the amazing Regan Miner. History people in the 40 under 40. Also Jasmine Augusto from Hartford History Center, also on this page. Not just entrepreneurs, people, it's the history community. So we're pretty excited about that. So congratulations, Dane and Regan, who is often involved in our programs as well. So Rebecca has arranged a great program with our guests today, and we want to leave plenty of time for conversation as well. So I'm going to basically bat the ball over to Rebecca, and she will take things from here. And if you have any questions as we go, please feel free to pop them in the chat, and I will queue them up for our panelists. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank you, Amherst. I really appreciate the fact that you allowed us to come back again to talk more History Day, because anyone who knows me knows that the thing I love most is History Day, and I can never stop talking about History Day. So I'm really excited to have a chance to meet with all of you and I'm seeing myself as having very little in this conversation because I've got two great co-presenters that have a lot of wonderful things to share with you. But we are in my favorite time of year, which is contest season. And this year we are doing all of our contests virtually, but very hopeful that next year we will be reopening. So this program, Amherst, is perfectly timed because we're going to be doing a lot of planning and thinking over the summer for really reopening with a bang. And one of the most important pieces of that is all of you in the heritage community, because one of our subversive goals, and darn, this is being recorded, so we'll have record of it. But one of my subversive goals with History Day and with, part of why we took on the program is because we want to get students out doing local research. Doing everything online, I've noticed a lot fewer Connecticut topics because I think people are going for really well-known ones because they can't get to the library, they can't get to a museum. So this is really an opportune time to talk about History Day and think about, as the, God willing, world reopens, how do we get students to do their research and learn about what a great state we live in, and such a fascinating history that is just as fascinating as anything else. So I am going to bring up my screen share, which of course now has disappeared on me. We just practiced. Hang on a second. Let me try that. Oh, this would happen after we just practiced. Let's see if I can bring it up. Why is it not? Oh, there it is. There we go. So I just really kind of want to do a very, very brief introduction. Amherst already introduced everyone. And I just wanted to say about Dane. I'm really excited he could join us because Dane is one of those wonderful folks who actually did History Day. He's a former participant, And he's gone on to a career in history and in museums, which is always exciting. One of the things, just in case you weren't able to join us last time, Connecticut History Day is an affiliate of National History Day. So, the contest is the hook. Again, subversive, don't tell the kids this, but the contest is the hook to get the kids to participate. But really the idea is that it is a year-long academic program that helps students become the historians, to understand the nuances of history and to get excited about the past. And also to see how the past informs present. It is for middle and high schoolers, and it's inquiry based. It's students asking questions. And it's really centered around historical research, interpretation, and creative expression. Our kind of tagline is student choice, student voice, because it's one of those projects in school that students really get to direct their learning. And, this is probably not a surprise to those who know me well, that I have a lot of History Day t-shirts and socks and face masks that I wear. And often I'll get comments when I'm out in public. Oh, I remember the project I did. And I hear from alumni how much that experience has helped them in their lives. Right now, we are gearing up for our spring contest season. Now, as we were getting prepared, I saw some friends like Carol Ann Brown who've judged for us before. And so friends who've judged, please feel free to jump in. Beth Burgess from Stowe Center. Stowe Center has been a huge supporter of History Day. And often we'll get students doing projects on members of the Beecher and Stowe family. To me, the first step in learning about History Day and maybe thinking about how you might engage with the program and how it might benefit your organization is to judge. Judging is a great opportunity to meet members of the community. You're in a team of 3. I try to pair people up, someone with a history background, someone who is an educator, and maybe someone who's kind of a specialist. So if you're in exhibits, maybe someone who's got experience in design, or your website, someone with IT experience. And, all of us on this Zoom chat, we have many things in common. Probably the most important is that we have a love of history. So this program encourages young people in their study of history and in their love of history and understanding the world around them. We need to have those young people come along to take our places. And one thing I love about History Day is every time I watch Jeopardy, I can answer a question because of a project I've seen. You guys will laugh at this, but when I first moved to Connecticut, I was judging or something, and someone had a project on the turtle. Now, I've had a pet turtle since 1980. And so my first reaction was, what, a turtle? I didn't realize it had to do with a submarine. I'll never get that one then. But, it's a good way of understanding the NHD program. I think when you see the students, and even, students who maybe don't have the greatest project, you see the passion and you see what a victory it is for students to sometimes just get a project done. And I think that's really encouraging. For this year, as I mentioned, all of our contests are virtual. So I'm shamelessly advertising our website, and you can always email me, and I'm happy to sign you up. Jen will recognize some of these projects. What is the benefit to you and your organization? Well, first of all, it allows you to share your mission. And I'm going to let you in on a little fact about me. Apart from my love of Diet Coke, which I'm copiously drinking through this time of year, I have a real passion for getting students involved in History Day. We have data. So if you are at an organization, you could email me and say, Rebecca, I'm in Norwich. Do any schools in the Norwich area participate? I can tell you yes or no, because I have all the data from past years. Certainly because of the pandemic, our participation is down, and you can kind of understand that. I think many teachers have had such a difficult few years. They're hanging on by a thread. because they've had to just be extraordinary acts of brilliance throughout the last few years of trying to manage everything that's going on. But, we really are looking at next year as reopening. So if you want to get your organization involved in History Day, email me and ask, are there any schools in the area who participate? Because here's the thing, if there are, I can put you in contact with them and you can be a resource and really work with that teacher and their students. If they're not involved, you as a local community member can reach out to them, because you know what? It's not like we don't talk about what we do. It's not that we don't try to recruit people, but it's hard. It's hard to do a blanket recruitment. And I didn't include our map. I should have, but there are a lot of communities in Connecticut that don't participate in History Day. And the hard part is finding the right person to connect with, that right teacher who would be like, oh yeah, I can take this on. It is more work in some ways. Most schools are doing project-based learning, but I think a lot of teachers, especially now, look at one more thing. I can't do one more thing, but it's really important. And it really, this program will let you engage with teachers and students in that hard age area, which is the middle and high school. We all know the elementary kids come and visit, but not so much the middle and high schoolers. I will be gearing up this summer and contacting people to say, can you give me some topic ideas? Little secret, we know what next year's theme is. I'm going to get to it in a second for the big reveal, but send me ideas for topics that relate to next year's theme that someone could come and research at your organization, because we give out a list to students and teachers saying, here are potential topics, because we're really trying to foster them to do local research. The great thing about History Day is that it helps you develop relationships, and you can build relationships with your local teachers. And I think that's a really important thing. The other kind of secret thing about History Day and a benefit to you is that if you have students doing research about a topic at your organization, you can host their exhibits or their programs. And I'm going to just kind of point out these three examples. It was hard to call them down. I picked the one to the right, which actually was one of Jen's students, Sam Purcello, many years ago, did a project on the Hartford Circus Fire. Actually, another team did the Hartford Circus Fire, and they both won at nationals. But Sam did an amazing job. He talked to actual survivors of the fire, and that was his exhibit. And I think, Jen, was he a middle schooler or a high schooler? I think wasn't he middle schooler at that point? Yeah. The girls at the bottom of my slide did their project on the Smith sisters. And they won a special prize at the state contest for this. But again, really creative local topic. And then this young lady actually is another of Jen's students. So she's following me if you haven't noticed. But one of Jen's students, Elena, who did her project on Harriet Beecher Stowe. She loves really women's history. And so she's performing her History Day project at the Stowe Center, because every year when the Stowe Center has their celebration, the Stowe Center will sponsor the Women's History Prize at the state contest, and they have students who've done Stowe-related topics perform. So that's where you can really make use of students' work. A couple years ago, we had two students do a project on Carolyn Faraday of the Bellamy Faraday House out in Western Connecticut, owned by Connecticut Landmarks, and they had their exhibits on display in the visitor center. So there you can kind of make use of it. And I'll let you in on something. When you invite a student to do something, they bring along their parents, they bring along their friends, so it adds to your audience. So what are your action steps? Yes, next year is Frontiers in History. And we love history, so we want to have our colon. So it's people, places, ideas. The idea behind a History Day theme is that it's broad. It can encompass any kind of history, from world to local history. We really want to encourage students to be focused on local history. And so that's where all of you come in. And it's an opportunity to build relationships and to get more people using your resources. So what are the action steps that you can take? Well, sign up to judge and have a chance to see firsthand how a History Day contest works and to see what kind of work the students do. We are doing all of our contests virtually, but we're going to, should the COVID numbers continue to be okay and continue to decline, we do plan to do a showcase event on April the 30th to let students bring their projects and share them with audience members. That's the piece of History Day we've really been missing. Reach out to local educators. That's the hardest thing, is getting through the front door of a lot of schools. We're finding that right teacher who would be willing to take this on. History Day can work in all kinds of spheres, whether it's in a social studies class, gifted and talented program, extra credit, after school. There are a lot of ways of doing History Day. And it's oftentimes finding that right person, whether it's an administrator or a teacher or anyone else. As we're gearing up for next year, think about if you are one of those places, those museums that have schools participating nearby. Let's say you're in Torrington. Both Torrington High School and Torrington Middle School participate. That's an opportunity to perhaps offer workshops or programs or be in the schools to help students, because it's kind of universal stuff we're talking about. We're talking about research, how to do research, how to evaluate sources, and then putting together projects. And then last but not least, highlight student work. If you do have students who are doing a topic related to your site, keep in touch with them, make use of them at programs and events, because nothing really, I think, gets to the heart of the program as having the students present, because you see the impact, you see the power, and you see that, if we want students to care about the past, if we want students to care about our state, we have to give them that opportunity to learn about what makes us Connecticut. So I think I probably went over, as I often do, because when it comes to History Day, I can go on and on. But I'm really, really excited to be able to introduce Jennifer Hunt, who has been a friend and colleague for many years now. Amaris told you a little bit of her background, and just Jen has had phenomenal success with students, and many of her students going to the national contest, winning at the national contest. But really, my favorite story about a student with Jen is one of her students from Sedgwick, who I believe was an English as a second language learner, came to the Torrington contest. And this student didn't go on to the state contest, but I remember Jen telling me that after the Torrington contest, she went back and told her friends and said, you know what? I loved talking with the judges. I had such a great experience. You should do it too. And that is the power of History Day. So Jen, I'm going to let you take it away.
Don't forget to unmute yourself, Jen. There you go.
Okay, let's hope this works. How about that?
That's great. Just enter the slideshow. Awesome. We got it.
Okay, well, here we go. For all of you museum directors, I have to say that the key to some of the winning projects I've had, or many of them, are those who actually visit museums and conduct their research there. I have some examples, and this is my first one. And you saw that, well, maybe you didn't see this. No, you saw that his circus tent, but this is my History Day knight in shining armor, who carried a slew of kids behind him. I'm telling you, he was a 6th grader here, and he designed a teepee to illustrate his transcontinental railroad, and he had actual railroad tracks right up the center of his teepee there, with the railroad and American officials on one side and the Native Americans and their reaction on the other side. And his teepee spun. It was amazing. the next year, he decided, when he had gone to nationals, he schmoozed with every kid in the room and just soaked it up. And he came back and said, some of the kids said, the best thing to do in order to get to nationals is to do a local topic. So Sam tackles the Colt precision manufacturing revolution, and revolution, reaction, reform was the theme that year. And so he did a fantastic job there and went to nationals again. He's now in the 7th grade. Let's see. Oop. Here he is with his Hartford Circus Fire tent. Oh boy, I'm going too fast. There's the Colt collection. I don't know how to advance properly here, but he of course, he did a lot of research at the Colt Connecticut History Museum. And in his exhibit, you might have missed, I don't know how to go back here, but
I think you left the slideshow. If you go
it?
back to, you left your, I think in that great, there you go.
Okay. I don't know how to advance the slide. Oh, okay, here's, these are a little bit out of order, but Sam got a personal letter from David McCullough, and David McCullough had written his first book, I believe, right out of graduate school on his hometown, Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And David McCullough didn't do too much online, like he didn't email or anything. So Sam gets a handwritten letter from David McCullough. Talk about gold. He had that on his exhibit, I'll tell you. These are all out of order. What did I do here?
I think you're visiting links from your slides, perhaps. I don't know. It keeps taking you to a website instead of.
Did you want me to share your slides, Jen? I can do that if that.
Oh, here we go.
Unless those were screen captures, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what's going on.
I think they're both, but can you see the flood now?
Yeah.
It's moving. I'm not doing that, but it's moving anyway.
Jen, okay. Did you want me to do your slides?
You can't see this now?
No, we can see Danielle and Miss Lou.
Okay. This was actually my first slide because Danielle went to nationals with, she's a Jamaican, her family was from Jamaica. Her father worked at the State House in Connecticut. And she said, I think I have a great idea for a project. This Miss Lou, there was an obituary in the paper when I visited my grandparents, and she did a project, a performance, and I think she was my first ticket to nationals. And she inspired everyone to jump on board and try it because she was so dynamic. And she's the one who inspired Sam to get started with his project. So there he is with his teepee. There he is with his Colt. And you see the little onion dome at the top of his project. There is the Colt factory. If you ever drive through Hartford, you'll see that. And there he is with a survivor from the Hartford Circus Fire. They were fascinating people to interview. He just left nothing unturned. If there was a museum, if there was a letter, if there were archives, he found them. This was his exhibit on the Johnstown flood, where he was communicating with the historian. The thing that that was amazing was that he was visiting his grandfather in Pennsylvania, who lived through the Johnstown flood. And so he went to the museum in the town to find out a little bit more about that Johnstown flood. And off he went to make another national award-winning project. then interview McCullough, and then the Pope Park history. This was his exhibit, and I have to tell you that he has two loves, history and baseball. And he played baseball at Pope Park. And one time he was on his way out to get in the car, and he looked up and he said, "Pope, I wonder who that was." That was it. And he developed an amazing project about Alfred Pope and his invention of the bicycle. He used, his imagery was incredible. He inspired, I used to bring kids in to think about History Day, and I'd make them stand way at the end of the room. And I'd say, okay, you can't really read anything here, but what do you think this is about? Well, there's a circle or a cycle, and there's roads, and they could tell what the project was about. That's the power of the exhibit category. And Sam really knew how to do it. If you see on the right, he created a visual roadway that started with dirt, became gravel, and then was paved and ready for the bicycle. So, and he involved the advances for women that came because of the bicycle. So he's brilliant. This girl also went to nationals, and she, on the left, studied Audrey Hepburn. And rather than portray Audrey Hepburn, she portrayed the French designer that was close to Audrey Hepburn. She found an interesting way to do it. She traveled to any museum. She went to the New York Public Library. She went to museums. Her mother was carting her everywhere over the weekend, and she'd come back with more information. On the right, she did the history of the dime novel and wound up teaching people about the Dust Bowl and the time period that produced dime novels. And here's another one of my favorites. Although teachers aren't supposed to have favorites, I do have several. And this girl, the one year she did Eleanor Roosevelt, and over a Christmas break, we wound up bumping into one another at the FDR Museum and across the street at Eleanor Roosevelt's house. I forget what it's called, but there are two museums right next to one another. They were so good to her. They went up and got boxes of letters and documents and things for her to use in her project. She was welcomed to the Stowe House and taken down in the archives, and was allowed and guided by the docents there to research her project. And she was another success story, and we spent a lot of time there. And you saw on Rebecca's slideshow that she got to perform that at the summer celebration at the Twain and Stowe gardens there. These little girls, we went to an event, we did a field trip to a museum in Hartford, and they watched a video, and there was something about the Ku Klux Klan in there, and they said to me, "Is that really something?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And they put together, I don't think they went very far in History Day, but they did a great job putting it into imagery, and they learned a lot. This is Sam Porcello's sister followed him to History Day every year, and when she got into middle school, she said, "I'm going to do History Day too, and my goal is to beat Sam." And she did. They always, their family, I'm telling you, they had so much personal history in their projects. Her grandmother was an operator for AT&T. And she wound up finding this story about Lorena Weeks, who took a stand that was the theme that year. And as you can see, she followed in the footsteps of her brother, making fabulous exhibits. And she made use of interviewing everybody she could and traveling wherever she could get. You know, she didn't left no stone unturned, if you will. These girls, I believe the theme this year was innovation of some sort. I forget what it was, but they got to go to the Artists Collective in Hartford and interview Dolly McLean, who's the wife of the famous jazz musician who started the Hart School of Music. I believe he did, but we spent, oh my God, 2 or 3 hours there. She took us through the entire building, told us background. It was just an amazing thing. These girls could have done their project just on her, but they wound up doing it on jazz in particular. Oop. I don't know whether this will play. And if we have time for it, I could skip it. Do we have time for this? Let's see if it
I don't
works.
know how much time you have left in your presentation or how long the video is. You know, I think we'd like to wrap up in the next 10 minutes.
Oh, easy. If it will play, you will realize the kind of kids that might come to you. No,
I mean, everybody in the next 10 minutes. So
this boy did Lewis Comfort Tiffany, and he did tremendous research and traveled everywhere to find his winning exhibit. And there we are at the national competition at the University of Maryland. And it's a thrill to be with with the country's best young historians. And it's just a thrill. So I can stop the share there, and that's it.
great. Thanks so much, Jen. Maybe if you have a link to that YouTube video and want to share it in the chat so people could watch it, that would be a way to get people to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, you can see from Jen's presentation just how what wonderful research students do, and the History Day students who come to museums are very serious about what they're doing. And I don't want to take up any more time. I want to make sure, you know, Dane kind of is our he's bringing us home in this presentation because he kind of has everything. He's a past participant. He is now a museum director, and we love the Slater Memorial Museum because, as you know, they're located right on the campus of Norwich Free Academy, which is one of our contest hosts. So Norwich is one of our favorite places to go because he puts out a warm welcome and makes it a really memorable, great contest. So I'm gonna lob it off to Dane.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you all. I'm Dayne Rugh, the director of the Slater Memorial Museum, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how the museum here has partnered with and assisted various student projects throughout Connecticut History Day. And I'm really, really privileged that we could partner with Connecticut History Day because this is a really, really wonderful program. And Rebecca didn't pay me to say this, but everybody needs to sign up to be a judge. It's a really rewarding process, and the competition needs judges in order to make these dreams come true for these kids. And they have such a fabulous time doing these projects. So it's such a worthwhile endeavor. I competed in this contest twice in junior and senior year in high school, which is, when I say it's 15 years ago, that sounds like a long time now, and it's just getting longer and longer and longer. So since then, I've been privileged to work with this program as a resource for students. Slater Museum is a museum that contains a number of different resources, and there are additional resources beyond the museum that Norwich can provide to students and potential topics that I'm going to share with you in just a moment. But I'll give you some highlights just to give you an idea of how we have partnered with students here at Norwich Free Academy specifically to create entries and projects that go on to win recognitions and win awards. As I mentioned before, we've got a number of pieces in our collection. The museum has over 10,000 individual pieces of art and objects within the permanent collection. And only about 30% of that is on display in our galleries, but it's comprised of much more than art. It's comprised of archives and letters and primary resources that, again, connect to so many different themes, whether it's something related specifically to NFA or Norwich history or art history or various things that you see throughout Eastern Connecticut. And one of the things I really love doing here in this role around this time of year is getting the emails from the teachers here at NFA saying, I've got this student and this is the project they're doing for History Day. What does the museum have, if anything, that could help with it? And then I go back and I more often than not will say, I've got this that can help. Very rarely have I found myself saying, wow, this is really something that doesn't fall under the scope of the museum's collecting side, but more often than not, I've been able to at least show teachers and students exactly where they can go to find resources. So, and every project is different. Not every case is the same. But in the past few years, I've seen some notable standout projects that still make me smile when I think about it. In one of the more recent highlights here that I'll share with you was I got to work with a student here at NFA, Ross Blinderman, who created a documentary on Abraham Lincoln and his ability to communicate. This was the contest last year, actually, which was communication in history. And he ended up winning first place in the local competition for this documentary that he made. And when I got connected with him, I had asked him, are you aware of Abraham Lincoln's connections here in Norwich? And he had said, no, I didn't know anything about that. But what I was able to do was to connect him with excuse me, people are trying to call me. I'm busy. I'm doing a very important presentation. Sorry about that. I was able to connect him with a special resource that we had here at the museum because Abraham Lincoln had come to visit Norwich when he was campaigning to run for president in 1860. So this was one of his campaign stops, and we knew a lot about that stop because an NFA student in 1860 went to go see him speak at the town hall, and later in life, that student ended up doing an interview on seeing Abraham Lincoln that was only published once. It ended up being published in the History of New London County series, which was done in 1922, and nowhere else was this interview ever published. So that was an incredibly valuable primary source to flesh out exactly how Abraham Lincoln was a communicator in running for president at that time. So that was something he was able to incorporate into his documentary by having this own firsthand account of an NFA student that saw Abraham Lincoln speak in person. Incidentally, that NFA student went on to become the chair of the NFA Board of Trustees. So that was pretty special. A couple of other highlights that I'll share too was in 2020, we ended up working with two students also here at NFA that did a presentation or project on Edwin Land, who was the inventor of the Polaroid. Edwin Land went to school here at NFA. He graduated from Norwich Free Academy, grew up here like 3 doors down from NFA, and went on to become a renowned genius in developing the Polaroid. So that was a project that took 3rd place in the local competition. And I also ended up working with a student who won first place for websites, and that was regarding the opening of Japan in the 19th century. We were able to utilize an exhibition we have on Japanese material culture, as well as other accounts of history that we possessed here. So those are just a couple of big highlights that stand out to me. The most recent project that I'm assisting with concerns the Norwich State Hospital, and that's for this year's competition. The museum has quite a large trove of images and archives from the original Norwich State Hospital that are proving very helpful throughout all of this. So those are just some examples. And what I want to do next, in the interest of time, is I want to share my screen here to get you here. One moment, just got a couple of websites here to bring up for you. Okay, right, I think everybody can see that. On Slater Museum's website, we have a page called Learn. And please forgive me, because this is a work in progress, because at the moment I'm not only the director, but I'm also kind of the educator, and some days I sort of feel like a one-man army putting together some of these resources. But these are publicly accessible on our website, and for anybody that is looking for, again, either a starting point or specific information that connects to a certain theme or a certain project that one of your students is working on, you might find something useful here. And in addition, we have digital lessons, digital art lessons and art history lessons that can be accessed to. So we've got a number of video tours, as well as our own dedicated YouTube channel, which takes you to the museum's YouTube page that has many, many more videos that all document certain pieces in our collection. We also have a virtual tour of the museum, and believe it or not, this tour is going to need to be completely redone, because we're completely redoing the museum while we are temporarily closed this year. But that can be accessed as well on our website. And the other website that I want to show you here too, this is me now speaking on behalf of my wife, who runs the Norwich Historical Society. The Norwich Historical Society has done an incredible job developing robust digital resources, again, that connect all to local themes, local history, and local figures that have had really nationally significant impacts on the development of our country. And so you can see all of the Norwich Historical Society's self-guided walking trails on walknorwich.org. I'll drop them in the chat just so you can get those direct links. But I wanted to highlight one of them in particular, because the Benedict Arnold Walking Trail of Norwich, developed within the past few years, went on to earn a student first place in the junior paper division a few years ago, when the theme was Triumph and Tragedy, the Triumph and Tragedy of Benedict Arnold. He grew up here in Norwich, and you can learn all about his life as it ties to the colonial history here in Norwich. So all of these, again, can be accessed from this website, walknorwich.org. Again, I'll drop it down in the chat. And I don't want to go too much over time here, so let me stop sharing my screen and come back to you here.
Great, thanks so much, Dane, and to Jen and Rebecca for a great presentation. I think you've offered us a really wonderful overview of the different sorts of projects that students are doing. For anyone who hasn't sort of had that firsthand experience with History Day, some great action steps that people can take, and also some inspiration for just the sorts of resources that are helpful in getting students to your site and the kinds of outreach that you can do. So thank you so much for all of that. And I did not know that Edwin Land was in Norwich. That is such a cool fun fact. I used to drink at a bar in Cambridge, Mass. that had a picture of Edwin Land behind the bar. So my nerdy past. Anyway, I want to open things up to, I haven't seen any questions come through in the chat, so I'm going to shift my own view into gallery view so that I can see all your smiling faces once again, and just open things up. You can raise your hand using the reactions, or if I can see you, I think we're all on one screen here. I should be able to see you actually raise your hand. So if you have any questions for our panelists, or you want to share any of your own experiences about how you have utilized History Day, or you're thinking about, utilizing it, or anything like that, please feel free to speak up and share. I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, I was just
Carol
going to make, I was just going to make some comment. In talking to Jen last night, one of the things I always say when judging is some of these projects, you learn something that you didn't know. And I always say to myself, wow, this kid found something out. He's a 6th grader, 7th grader doing a documentary. And I didn't know that the song Strange Fruit, Billie Holiday, was written by a Jewish gentleman as a poem, and then put to music by him and his wife. And I went, wow, that was fascinating to me. I mean, just learning something that I didn't know, and it became a strange combination of Billie Holiday, the poem, and him being Jewish. So, you never know what these kids are going to come up with, and they always surprise you. They do. And the fact that it goes from 6th grade to 12th grade, they have a chance to do multiple projects. And each time they do another project, they learn of a new place to go to find information. And especially, I'm always amazed that some of them can find the primary sources, which I think as judges, we usually look for those primary sources where the kid has gone out and found somebody to interview, or some piece of information that is a firsthand, and actually holding something in their hands that is the original is like so moving to the kids once you get them into this. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that most of us, I'm on a school board, and we've had to do this vision of a learner, vision of a graduate, whatever they call it. Every school's doing it. And, the History Day projects fit into these visions of a learner, especially the critical thinking and the inquiry-based learning that the students have to do. So I'm kind of want our schools to become more involved in History Day. They have been in the past, and I think they need to get motivated again. Unfortunately, we do have a history teacher who's starting to inspire the kids to work. And the other thing to remember is that these teachers have to devote a tremendous amount of time. And one of the most inspiring people to me is, and Rebecca would be able to pronounce, Sharon over at Memorial in
Garzeg, yes.
Yeah. She's just unbelievable. I mean, the time that she puts into these projects, the kids working with the kids on these projects, because once you get the kids going, they're pretty good. And then, but they still need that teacher to inspire them. And Jennifer and Sharon have really gone above and beyond their duties as teachers to do these projects and to be recommended. Okay.
Thank you, Carol Ann. Carol Ann's one of our stalwart judges, who we always look forward to seeing. And, I just want to say that if you have an interest of trying to get this into your local school district, again, always feel free to reach out to any of us, because we're happy to trot out we're happy to be trotted out to promote History Day. And we've got the anecdotal stories that speak to the experience. But Carol Ann, you really hit the nail on the head with the fact that because it's a 6-year program, not all kids do it all 6 years, but we're kind of excited for years. Torrington High School did History Day. We finally got in the middle school, because you see the growth and the learning. And, just going back to a couple of Jen's students, I watched Sam Purcello become a mentor for younger students, and you see that perpetuate. So it's not just, oh, they follow him, it's that person becomes a teacher. And I remember Sam, who was very quiet, and he's never going to be a big, chatter, but to see the growth in him. And I do see, it's a really amazing thing to see. So thank you, Carolyn.
Okay.
I wanted to mention something. I missed a slide. I don't know why it wasn't on there, but I heard from a former student, two former students actually, and he thanked me for his experience and that he's a freshman at Yale and he's majoring in history and computer science. And he's being followed next year by another student who also is majoring in history. So let's go History Day for the future.
Absolutely. And I would be surprised. I mean, I just want to echo Carol Ann's comments about, the importance of teachers and history teachers and cultivating that. I doubt that there's a person on this Zoom call who hasn't at some point in their life had a history teacher who really inspired them. So, that I just want to echo and underscore that it's really so essential.
As somebody who judged last year, I just want to give a shout out to all the people who managed to get all those videos and web pages and everything in the right folder so the judges could find them easily and mark them. It was amazing, and it made it really quite a pleasure to judge last year.
Great, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of work that clearly goes into this behind the scenes. So thank you, Rebecca, and everyone else. Andy, can I put you on the spot for a second? I just want to take this opportunity. Andy King is CLHO's communications manager, and they're also a graduate student in the public history program at CCSU. And Andy and I were talking about History Day, and Andy sent out an email to everyone kind of encouraging people to judge and why it's important. But I was just wondering if you wanted to share a little bit about your own experience before we close today and have an opportunity to say hi to the CLHO peeps.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I usually am not able to come to colleague circles because I'm a grad student. I have 2 jobs and my life is crazy. But I was able to come today, which is exciting. I started doing History Day as a judge. I never did it as a student. My school didn't do it. I actually went to Ledyard High School. So when I heard that there were regional contests like 10 minutes down the road, I was like, NFA, I was like, oh my gosh, why did I not do that in high school? But I was a freshman at Central's history program, and I had joined History Club, and I was friends with all these nerds, and they're like, oh my God, History Day is coming up. And I was like, what is that? And Central hosts the state contests when we're in person. And it was like the most fun day of my life. And I look forward to History Day every year because as a freshman in college, I was thrown into networking. I was meeting so many professionals from the field and all different types of things. Some people were high school teachers, some people worked in museums, some people worked in libraries, some people did History Day when they were in junior or high school. And it was awesome. And I look forward to it every year because now that I'm getting my graduate degree and I want to work in museums moving forward, I feel like when I judge projects, I'm like seeing future colleagues, like literally seeing future colleagues. Like Dane did History Day and now he's director of Slater House Museum. So that's our Memorial Museum. So that's really, really wonderful. I just can't recommend it enough. And it being virtual does not hinder on how cool of an experience it is. In fact, last year it was almost cooler because I was meeting people from all over the country that were just we're just judging different state contests, and people had like such amazing stories to tell about that. And it was almost cooler and honestly more convenient because you didn't have to block out a whole day. You kind of could like take your time to look at stuff throughout the week and then meet with your group. So if anything, it's actually much more convenient that it's online. But so I'm going to be excited to be in person so I can see people again, but I don't want it virtual. I don't want the contest being virtual to sway anyone away. In fact, I wanted to bring more people in, because then I don't have to just do regional contests. I can do contests for schools that I haven't done before in other parts of the state, which is just awesome. And it's just a wonderful networking opportunity. And it just feels really good to uplift young students, because we all were young students, and you know what they need, and you know that they need validation and support from professionals in the field. And it's inspiring. I feel so like, in video games, when your heart meter goes down, when you get blow by blow, History Day is one of those days where it fills my heart meter. Like, I just feel rejuvenated because I just feel inspired. I'm like, people really like what we do, and I like what we do, and these kids are going to like what we do. And it's awesome. And I love History Day. So thanks for putting me on the spot, Amherst.
Thanks for sharing, Andy. We really appreciate it. I know Rebecca has a hard 1 o'clock. She's got to leave. So I'm going to wrap things up here. I'm happy to stay for a few minutes if anybody has questions for me, but I cannot answer all of your questions about History Day. So I'll send a follow-up email with the link to this video and a couple other resources that our panelists shared, just so you can get a reminder about those great action steps that Rebecca had for you. I think the main one is to email Rebecca if you want to get more involved in this. She really is, your Connecticut History Day, Rebecca.
Not quite, but oh, yeah, please do. And thank you for the opportunity to chat with everyone. It's been great seeing you. Daycare is closing early today. That's why I have to kind of rush off. But feel free to email me. I look forward to seeing you virtually soon and in person in not too long.
Great. Thank you all. Thanks again to Rebecca, Jennifer, and Dane for sharing their experiences, and everyone else for coming and talking about your own experiences and ideas about History Day. Thanks for being here, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.